The luteal phase is often when we see more activity on our skin, whether that be breakouts or rosacea flares, maybe just increased general sensitivity, but it really doesn't have to be that way. There are some simple shifts that we can incorporate to help support our skin so that we're not always just waiting on a monthly breakout. And today I want to share some of my tips and tricks. I've been an esthetician for 20 years. So some of the things that I incorporate in my treatment room when somebody is having these types of skin concerns, as well as lifestyle practices and uncovering the mystery of what's going on in your body during the luteal phase.
You are listening to Skin, Earth, Vitality, the podcast where ancient wisdom meets modern vitality. If you are seeking to reconnect with your innate vibrancy, you're in the right place. I'm Emily Davis, a seasoned holistic esthetician and herbalist. Join me as we unlock the secrets of ancient skincare practices, explore the beauty of seasonal and nature-based living, herbalism, and true holistic well-being for you and the broader ecosystem. This podcast is brought to you by Stratum Aesthetics. Head to stratumaesthetics.com to find curated skincare, body care, and other wellness products hand-selected by me. Now enjoy the show. Please remember that the information I share in this podcast is based on my personal and professional experience and is intended for educational and informational purposes only. It is not individualized skincare advice, nor is it medical advice. I encourage you to take charge of your own health decisions and listen to your body, seeking out the resources and professionals that best support your wellness journey.
Welcome back in. Today we're sharing the fourth episode in a 4-part series that's all about your menstrual cycle and your skin. And so today we're talking about the luteal phase. Luteal phase is the autumn of your cycle. And if you're just tuning in for the first time, you're perfect. You're in the right place. You can listen to the other 3 episodes. They're not necessarily meant to listen to in order, but you can listen to the other 3 episodes after this episode if you like it. I will link those episodes in the show notes, or if you're watching on YouTube, I will put them at the end of the video. If you like the lens that I bring today, I'm a holistic esthetician. I've been doing it for 20 years. I'm also an herbalist, and I'm also currently studying Ayurvedic wellness. So if you like my lens, this holistic, vitalist lens when it comes to skincare, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast. It really helps to make sure that you don't miss a single episode. And then also I do a weekly newsletter called Moon Day Notes that you can sign up for in the link in the description here. It's just a little love letter from me to you in your inbox every Monday, all about skin and herbalism and wellness and living well. So if you're interested, make sure to check that out right down in the description. So let's get into what luteal phase is. It's this phase of our cycle, it's the second half of our cycle that's roughly 10 to 14 days long. And there's really 2 different personalities happening within luteal phase. There's the one that you always hear people talking about, which is the few days before your period, when it's really common to feel kind of like a crazy person and like your whole world is falling apart. And that's so real, can be so accurate sometimes. But let's actually start with early luteal phase, which is right after ovulation, up until about like 3 days before your period. So how do you know that you're in luteal phase. In some of the other episodes, I've talked about tracking your period with your basal body temperature. And so to do that, you will use a thermometer. I love the Natural Cycles thermometer. I don't actually use the app anymore. Nothing wrong with the app. I just kind of stopped using it, but their thermometer is amazing. I've got it right here if you're watching on YouTube. First of all, I just love that there's like a little message when you turn it on. It's like rise and shine, or sometimes it says, good morning, Emily. And then you start measuring, and then it will calculate your temperature. But you can also look back. There's a button where you can find past data. So, for example, this morning I woke up at about 5, took my temperature. You have to take it as soon as you wake up. I didn't feel like getting my little notebook out. I have a little notebook here. This is where I record my temperature every day so that I can track my cycle and kind of know what's going on. I don't always want to turn on the light, open the notebook and record it. So I like this because you can go to past data up to like 6 days ago and you can track it later. And so that's really nice. It's not a super bright light. I have thought about putting a little like red piece of tape over it so that it's at least taking out some of the blue light, but I love that thermometer. So the way that you know that you're in luteal is that your temperature will rise, and it'll rise like 0.5 degrees, sometimes even a little bit more, sometimes less. But it is a dramatic rise. Usually I'm like right at 97.02 all throughout. And then all of a sudden it's like 97.8 or something like that. And so it is a rise in your temperature. And that's because we have progesterone entering the picture. Progesterone is kind of the main character during your luteal phase, and progesterone raises your body temperature. So it's really cool to be able to see that you did ovulate and you are in fact in luteal phase by taking your temperature. We talked last time about the corpus luteum, and that's that structure that the follicle turns into. So the follicle creates an egg and then it releases it and then it collapses and becomes this structure that produces that progesterone. And then at the end of luteal phase, it breaks down and just turns into a little remnant. So like I said, after ovulation, basal body temperature increases slightly because now we have progesterone rising. This means that your metabolic rate is increasing, and estrogen at this point in early luteal phase stays pretty moderate. It's not spiking here like it was during ovulation, but it's not going to really drop until the end of the luteal phase, right before your period. So I love early luteal phase the most. It's when I feel the most comfortable. Progesterone is very GABA supportive, so it supports focus. It's very calming. This is the time when you become maybe a little bit more introverted, which is my natural state, and I think that's why this time feels so comfortable to me. But the brain converts progesterone into a neuroactive metabolite, and then that metabolite enhances GABA signaling. And GABA is our brain's primary neurotransmitter. So during this time, our brain is less novelty driven than it was when estrogen was rising and peaking during ovulation. We're less socially expansive, and we're more into like structure and sustained focus. It's a time when you're just really good at like closing loops, finishing projects, cleaning. You're kind of like nesting and preparing for your period. And then fast forward to late luteal, which is like 3 days before your period starts. And this is when progesterone drops and we'll have like more rumination, more sensitivity, more irritability. And I talked in a couple of the previous episodes about a book called Wild Power. You have to read this book. It's so good. I thought I had it on the shelf. Oh, I do. Here we go. Wild Power right here. So good. I just love this book. It's called Discover the Magic of Your Menstrual Cycle and Awaken the Feminine Path to Power. I love that it goes through the cycles and talks about like what you might be feeling. And it really talks about how like when that irritability during luteal phase increases, this isn't like a bad thing necessarily, even though it doesn't feel good. But she talks about how it's like a message, like this irritability is shining a light on something that's not in alignment with our life. And although we may feel a little dramatic about it, it is a message that we should be paying attention to and not necessarily always acting on every feeling that we have, but just noticing like, what is my subconscious trying to tell me? So although luteal phase can feel like you're just like out of control in your mind, or it feels very uncomfortable sometimes, it also is a superpower. So let's talk about, if we have this superpower, what is our body asking for? How can we support our body during this phase? So if the egg that was released during ovulation was fertilized, the embryo would implant during this time. And so progesterone comes in to calm and stabilize everything. Progesterone does not like chaos. It wants to stabilize the uterus and the immune system. It's raising body temps slightly because that's going to increase the odds of implantation. So your body just really loves rhythm and regularity with habits, with what you're eating, with your workouts, with sleep, all of this stuff. We love rhythm all the time, but especially in luteal phase. And even if pregnancy is totally irrelevant to you, understanding that your body wants like anti-chaos right now is so important, because things like sleep disruption, blood sugar swings, alcohol, high stress, even like overtraining at the gym, circadian irregularity, all of this can lead to worse PMS. It can lead to really reactive skin. It can lead to poor sleep and that irritability, maybe rage, anxiety, all these things that we're often complaining about during luteal phase. So our body doesn't want aggressive food restriction during this time. Progesterone, remember, it's thermogenic. It's heating our body up slightly, which means we're going to be burning more energy. So if we're restricting and training past burnout, your body's going to view this as stress and then increase cortisol. And do not get me wrong, cortisol is not evil. Cortisol is what rises you out of bed in the morning. But when we have chronically elevated cortisol, it's going to be an antagonist to progesterone because it competes with progesterone, and this is going to drive blood sugar imbalance, especially in late luteal phase. Your insulin sensitivity during this time is already decreased, and so we don't want to mess with our blood sugar and excess stress on top of that. And why is that? You know, when blood sugar is unstable, we are going to see things like inflammation and androgen activity, jawline breakouts, more aggressive PMS symptoms. So also keeping in mind that our body is asking for more sleep during luteal phase. It's asking for earlier wind down times, less stimulants, less alcohol, less heavy dinners, especially eaten late. That is the worst thing you can do for your sleep, is to eat right before bed or not give your body enough time to digest a heavy meal before bed. Progesterone has a sedating effect, and luteal is more inflammatory. As we're approaching our period, our inflammation does go up, and so we need sleep to be able to clear up and recover from inflammation. And in late luteal, like right up before your period, progesterone is going to drop and our sleep quality actually drops. And then inadequate sleep during luteal is going to, again, amplify those PMS symptoms. So if you think of all of this from an evolutionary lens, your body's like, okay, pregnancy might be happening. So the body is not any longer in this outward novelty-seeking phase like we were in ovulation. It's now going to be turning inward. It's more protective because it may be prepping for pregnancy. This is generally not your most creative brainstorming time. Again, it's time to finish projects. It's cozy time. It's that autumn of your cycle, right? So let's talk about skin during luteal phase and how your skin may be reacting, or how I commonly see skin reacting with my clients in my treatment room, with myself. So your skin might be slightly more oily. Progesterone can increase oil, and this may make your pores look a little bit more visible. Estrogen does start to decrease. It does it slowly, and so it may slowly start to look less glowy, maybe more dull, more textured. And then in late luteal, again, right up before your period, your barrier is going to become more sensitive, which means water can actually evaporate more easily than it would when your barrier has high integrity, because your barrier acts like a seal on your skin. It's like this invisible layer on the surface of your skin that's sealing in hydration. And when that barrier naturally loses integrity, we get what's called transepidermal water loss. So that's evaporation out of the skin, and that means that your skin's going to potentially be more dehydrated. So the first sign of dehydration, the way that you can tell if your skin is dehydrated, is you can see those little superficial lines, maybe around your eyes, maybe around your laugh lines. You'll get little tiny superficial creases. Another way that you can tell if your skin is dehydrated is just going up to the mirror and pinching it. I like to do the forehead and see how long it takes for that line to disappear. If it hangs out there for a while, that's a good sign that your skin is dehydrated. And then frustratingly, at the same time, sebum or oil can get thicker. So you can be oily and dehydrated at the same time. Your skin cell turnover starts to slow down a little bit during this time, which means we're going to have more skin cells hanging on to the surface. They're not sloughing off as easily. This can mean congested pores. When we have like thicker oil plus those skin cells that are hanging out, that's a recipe for congestion. It's also interesting that progesterone relaxes smooth muscle. So like in the uterus, it's going to do this, but also in the digestive tract. And so that means that gut motility is going to slow down. So gut motility is what moves our digestion along. And if you already struggle with really slow digestion or not having a daily normal bowel movement, you might notice it even more during this time. Okay, so why does that matter? Why does slower motility, slower digestion, not eliminating daily matter to the skin? It matters a lot. I think clients, when I ask them how their digestion is when we're talking about clogged pores, they're always like, "Ugh, why is she asking?" But there's a real reason. So slower motility, not digesting effectively, means that bile and hormone metabolites are going to sit longer in the gut. And this increases the chances that they're reabsorbed. And this can all show up as clogged pores, jawline breakouts. Late luteal is returning to the most inflammatory time during our cycle. And so we might also see things like rosacea or eczema or dermatitis flaring. And again, we have that slowed down motility, and this doesn't just affect the digestive system, it affects lymphatic flow also. So this is also a time when we may be more prone to water retention and puffiness. So, with all of that in mind, what does topical skincare during luteal phase look like? And I do want to mention, as I was writing this, I realized it might sound like I'm saying you need a different product for every week of your cycle or every week of the month. And I don't really want it to come off like that because it's not really realistic for most people. And if you know me, you know I'm a skin minimalist. I pretty much use one oil, the Laurel Unburdened Serum, every day of the month, along with the Laurel Effortless Cleanser, because I'm taking into consideration my specific skin pattern, which is more normal to dry and slightly reactive, pretty quick to flush. So it's got some heat activity. I'm almost 40. My skin's a little bit more sensitive than it was in the past. I live in Colorado, so I'm in an arid, dry climate. So I'm taking all of these into account, and I invite you to do the same, as well as your unique skin patterns, the climate you live in, the time of year, and then also the season of your cycle. So if something I said about how your skin reacts popped out, like, oh yes, that's totally me. I get breakouts. I get cystic acne along my jawline. I get clogged pores, or I get rosacea flares during my luteal phase. Then take into account some of these topical skincare recommendations for this phase. But what I don't want to do is be like making you feel neurotic thinking that you need to change your cleanser every month. So with that in mind, during this time, stagnation can be present. So we want to think about ingredients and modalities that can gently move without creating a ton of heat on the skin. So maybe this looks like slow, gentle, rhythmic gua sha with your gua sha stones. So we're not doing like a ton of scraping with our gua sha stone. This is more of like a long, flowy type of gua sha massage. Maybe you're using the lymph brush more during this time. The Kanza wand is amazing during this time. If you're finding that you're getting stagnation and angry breakouts, one of my absolute favorite products ever is the Laurel Detox Mask. It's like my secret ingredient in the treatment room when I have a client who has really red or angry breakouts. So I bring this mask out with some lymphatic work, and afterwards, when people look in the mirror, they are always like, holy cow, how did you do that? Because it can really help to take down the inflammation, the fluid retention in a breakout so quickly. And this mask is just so intelligent. I love Laurel. She is such a wise herbalist. So she puts a French green clay, which is amazing for cooling heat. It's going to slightly contract tissue, which can help with lymphatic movement, but the green clay by itself is actually really drying, and so it's the rest of the formulation that's what makes this mask so magical. It has marshmallow. This is one of my favorite plants for the skin. Marshmallow is going to prevent over drying and act like a buffer. It also has dulse seaweed, which is really cooling and healing. I need to do a whole show just about seaweed because it's one of my absolute favorite skincare ingredients, especially if you're breaking out. We also have aloe and chamomile in this mask, which are both cooling, calming to the skin. Burdock and dandelion and self-heal are all going to help support lymphatic movement. I just love this mask. It's so magical. So in treatment, I pair the mask with my gua sha stone to do some gentle lymph pumping. So I'll take a gua sha stone, and if you're at home, you can heat it up. You'll just take some hot water from the kettle, put your stone into a mug like this if you're watching on YouTube. Let your stone heat up, and then of course test the temperature of the stone. You don't want to burn yourself, but you're going to just do some gentle lymphatic pumping over a breakout. So taking the warm stone, and if you're watching on YouTube, you can see what I'm doing. I'm just like pumping over a breakout. So I'm not dragging across a breakout. I'm not scraping over a breakout. I'm just like gently pumping. And that heat is just so supportive. The warmth softens the tissues. It's going to encourage vascular movement. It's going to reduce vasoconstriction. Most people think that a cyst is just like an infection that needs to be killed, basically, but physiologically, an inflamed breakout is going to be increased blood flow to the area, increased vascular permeability. We've got immune cells rushing in, and then we have a fluid accumulation in all of the surrounding tissues, which is causing it to be large. And so this fluid creates pressure, and that tissue is getting swollen in like a very small space, and this swelling is pressing on all of the nerve endings in your skin. And so this is, maybe going to feel like throbbing or really tight, like it might burst. And so this is when we bring in this gentle pumping with the warm gua sha to move some of that excess interstitial fluid from the area and to just reduce some of the pressure within the tissue. So that's my favorite tip if you're working with cystic, painful, throbbing breakouts. The Laurel Detox Mask, which is available on my online apothecary. I will link all of the products I carry in the show notes today. And then your gua sha stone. If you don't have a gua sha stone, use a spoon. Just note that with a spoon, the metal's going to get hotter faster. And so always do a patch test on the inside of your wrist, behind your ear, so that you make sure you're not burning yourself, of course. Okay, so what if we are maybe congested and breaking out, but we're also dehydrated? For this, I love the Live Botanicals Rose and Rama Elixir Spray. It's a rose and tulsi. It's kind of like a spray-on serum. So it has that rose and tulsi hydrosol, which are both anti-inflammatory. This also has niacinamide in it, which is amazing for helping to repair the barrier. It's going to help seal in that moisture. We also have reishi mushroom, which again is going to be very hydrating to the skin. Another thing you may be noticing is that your skin's feeling really sensitive and reactive because that barrier is weaker. And so in that case, I love the Universal Garden Oil from Live Botanicals. This just has amazing essential fatty acids and phytosterols that help to both reinforce the barrier, calm the barrier. This is so helpful during the days leading up to your period when it may be more inflammatory, maybe more red. I also just love this oil. It has so many beautiful herbs. Again, marshmallow, oat, calendula to help soothe that inflammation. I use this primarily for massage, face massage. I use it in my treatment room for face massage. I use it at home for face massage, but it really is lovely. It can stay on the face as a moisturizer. You could even use it as an oil cleanser and a moisturizer. It's very multi-purpose. During luteal phase, especially late luteal phase, this is not a great time to experiment with new products. Save that for follicular, right after your period is over. That's when your skin is so much more resilient. It's a much, much better time to experiment or to use actives or to do treatments like microneedling, really getting into like mid to late luteal phase, your skin's so much more sensitive. It's really not a great time to be doing those types of things. So that's topical skincare during luteal. It's a lot of focus on like calming and supporting, but also because we can be prone to water retention, working on lymphatic movement. If you're having those angry cystic breakouts, helping to move fluid away from that area is going to be your best friend during this time. So let's talk about food. What food can we eat during our luteal phase that's going to most support our skin? Biggest thing is I love warm, cooked, grounding carbs during this time. Sweet potato, squash, oats, root vegetables. Your nervous system needs carbs during luteal. Sleep can get more fragile during late luteal. When I started really tracking my cycle and then also tracking sleep along with it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so wild how often I'm noticing that I have sleep struggles during like my late luteal phase, especially after that progesterone has gone down. So we need carbs to help support melatonin. I find that if I have a complex carb in the early evening with my dinner, again, not eating dinner past 6 is so important for sleep, but then adding a well-cooked carb to that during luteal, I sleep so much better. Healthy fats. We need healthy fats like omega-3 fatty acids for supporting inflammation that's starting to rise. Getting those sardines in during luteal phase, salmon, walnuts, all of the good healthy fats. We want foods that are going to help support elimination, daily elimination. Remember, our motility is slower. So thinking about things like beets or stewed apples, soaked chia seeds, magnesium-rich foods can help. So like pumpkin seeds, cacao. I love a cup of cacao during like those last couple of days of luteal phase. This is not a time for a ton of caffeine or alcohol. It's not a time to be skipping meals. It's not a time for a cold, raw diet. Your skin is going to benefit so much more from well-cooked, nourishing foods and lots of care. So last but not least, we're going to talk about herbs. Of course, it wouldn't be complete unless I told you about the herbs that I like during this phase. So I make 2 teas during luteal phase. The first one I call my red tent tea. And so this one has raspberry leaf, nettle, ginger, chamomile, and I love this because it's just like a really nice mineral rich blend. It has magnesium that's going to support that smooth muscle function in your uterus. Raspberry leaf prepares the uterus for effective uterine lining shedding. It's going to help to prevent cramps by making the contraction pattern like not chaotic. It's also very anti-inflammatory. Nettle is anti-inflammatory and helps with fluid retention. Ginger, I love ginger. I put it in everything. It just helps with your mood. It's going to, again, be anti-inflammatory. It enhances digestion. Chamomile is going to help with that potential sleep distress, also with irritability. I just feel like ginger and chamomile, like those are my 2 favorite herbs ever, and I put them together all of the time just by themselves. I think they're a really lovely blend. I think they balance each other really well. Chamomile is a little bit more cooling. Ginger is a little bit more warming. I think they're a really beautiful combo. And then the second tea that I drink, I call it my pretty girl drink because it is so skin supportive. I drink this all month long, but I specifically make sure to get it in during luteal phase. And so this one is shatavari. So this herb is an Ayurvedic herb, and it was introduced to me in herb school as shatavari, but then in Ayurveda school, she calls it shatavari. I like shatavari, but I don't know if I say it like a hillbilly. But I use this one from Pavani. It's a powder. And then I blend rose, which is also a powder. This one's from Anima Mundi. And then pearl powder. This is from Cultivate Elevate. It's the pearl powder that I really like. I did a whole episode on pearl powder, which I will link. But these are all powders. And so I like it because it's pretty easy, and I'll sometimes drink this first thing in the morning. So I measure with my heart, but I'll get maybe like a half teaspoon of shatavari, a half teaspoon of rose, and then like a quarter teaspoon to a half teaspoon, maybe a little bit more of each of these of the pearl powder. And I'll blend it together with a little frother in the hot water. The frother is key here. It's just one of those like electric ones because that gets the powders all mixed up with the hot water. So the reason I love this blend, shatavari, again, is an Ayurvedic herb. It's thought of as like a female health herb. It's super supportive to your reproductive tissue. It's progesterone supportive. It moistens the tissue. It's a very moistening herb. So some of our tissue internally can be a little bit more dry during luteal phase. And then rose, I just love so much for the emotional landscape. I always need that during luteal phase. Rose is just amazing for when you're in that place of feeling like very emotionally tight and aggravated, maybe a little bit brittle, like so much so that you just want to crawl out of your skin. Rose helps with that. On that note, when we're talking about rose, another product that I really like, it's from Wooden Spoon Herbs. I love them. I use so many of their products. I'm thinking about bringing this one into the shop. This is called Rose Colored Glasses. It's a glycerite, so it's I don't think it has alcohol in it, or very low alcohol at least, but a glycerite means that it's an extraction in glycerin, so it's going to be nice and sweet. You just take a little right out of the bottle, and this has rose, it has hawthorn, which is another heart medicine, passion flower, which I've talked about passion flower. It has oat seed extract. I've talked about both of those ad nauseum on this podcast because they are so good for anxiety. And then, of course, we have the rose, which is a heart opening plant. And so it's called Rose Colored Glasses for a reason. It just puts you in a really good mood. So I really like that one during luteal phase as well. But back to pretty girl drinks. So final ingredient is pearl powder. Like I said, I did a whole episode, but pearl powder is a Shen tonic in Chinese medicine, which means that it's a substance that basically calms and stabilizes your mind and your spirit, helping to regulate your nervous system and soften emotional reactivity. So I love, love, love pearl powder. Sometimes I'll just add that to some cacao, or if it's during the rest of my cycle and I'm drinking coffee, I'll add it into my coffee. But those are my favorite herbs that I personally reach for. So I hope that this has been helpful today, just talking about all of the things that you can do to help ease luteal phase, and then also to celebrate luteal phase, because it is kind of a fun time to go inward and just be with your own self and really listen to the messages that your subconscious is sending to you. If you enjoyed this episode, press like and subscribe, and I will be back next week. And until then, be well.
You've been listening to Skin, Earth, Vitality. If you like what you heard today, consider giving me a 5-star rating. It helps other people just like you to find the show. You can shop products and find all of my offerings on my website, stratumaesthetics.com, and follow me on my social channels at Stratum Aesthetics.